Imagine an empire that was already vast, powerful, and feared, yet faced new challenges at its borders with new lands, new riches, and new threats. What happens when an emperor not only defends what is his, but also decides to expand his domain beyond what many consider possible? Under Trajan's leadership, Rome not only solidified itself as an undeniable power, but also reached the height of its territorial expansion. It was in the conquest of Dacia that Trajan showed the world what it means to dare, not just to push the limits of an empire, but to change the course of history. The victory over Dacia wasn't just a military conquest. It was a milestone that redefined Rome's economic and strategic power. But what was truly at stake in this campaign? And how did Trajan, with his military prowess and strategic vision, turn a risky campaign into one of Rome's greatest victories? In this video, we'll dive into the details of this epic conquest, exploring how Trajan expanded the Roman Empire beyond its previous boundaries, and the profound implications this victory had for the future of Rome and the ancient world. Get ready to discover how a relentless emperor shaped the fate of an empire. The rise of Trajan, the emperor and his military legacy. Trajan had a clear vision for Rome. He wanted the empire to be not just the largest, but also the safest and most prosperous in history. To achieve this, he needed to ensure that the borders were more than just lines on a map. They needed to be fortresses. This vision led him to invest heavily in public works and the construction of robust infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and aqueducts, critical for the transport of troops and supplies. A notable example of this investment was the construction of the Via Trajana, a road that connected the recently conquered regions to the capital of the empire. This road network not only facilitated the mobility of the legions, but also promoted trade and the integration of the new provinces into the heart of Rome. Trajan understood that to consolidate his conquests, it was necessary not just to win battles, but also to build a structure that would support the empire's growth in the long term. In addition to his skills as a military leader and administrator, Trajan was also known for his sense of justice and the respect he had for the soldiers and citizens of Rome. His policy of clemency, particularly toward defeated enemies, helped stabilize the conquered regions and minimize revolts. Under his command, Rome was not only a war machine, but also a model of governance and civility, offering security and prosperity in exchange for loyalty and tribute. Dacia before Trajan, a rich and resilient kingdom. Decebalus was no ordinary king. He was a brilliant strategist who knew how to exploit the natural advantages of his kingdom to resist Roman power. The Carpathian Mountains provided natural defenses that made enemy advances difficult, and the fortresses scattered throughout the territory were almost impenetrable. Decebalus used guerrilla tactics and his knowledge of the terrain to inflict heavy casualties on the Roman armies, making each raid a risky and costly endeavor. In addition to his military prowess, Decebalus was also a master of diplomacy. He frequently used temporary peace agreements to reorganize his forces and reinforce his defenses, only to break the treaties when it suited him. This political maneuvering made him a particularly dangerous adversary, not only defending his land, but also undermining Roman morale with his tenacious and unexpected resistance. The wealth of Dacia, especially its gold, was one of Rome's main attractions, but also a curse for Decebalus. Knowing that the Romans coveted these riches, he did everything he could to protect them, hiding treasures and setting up elaborate defenses. However, he also used this wealth to finance his campaigns and attempt to buy peace, offering tributes to Rome to maintain his kingdom's independence, a strategy that only postponed the inevitable final confrontation with Trajan. Dacia's resistance and Decebalus's leadership made the region a symbol of freedom and strength, but they also drew Trajan's attention. Trajan saw the conquest of Dacia as an opportunity to not only secure Rome's territorial expansion, but also achieve absolute supremacy over the peoples around the Danube. For Trajan, defeating Decebalus meant not just enlarging the empire, but also eliminating a formidable rival who challenged Roman authority on the empire's borders. The First Dacian Campaign, Strategies and Challenges. Trajan knew that Dacia would not be an easy target. The first campaign against the Dacians, which began in AD 101, was meticulously planned. Trajan divided his forces into two main columns that would advance in a pincer movement to encircle the main Dacian fortifications. This was an ambitious plan that required not only brute force, but also impeccable logistics and precise execution. The legions marched under strict command, crossing the Danube via a floating bridge, a masterpiece of Roman military engineering. The challenges were immediate. The mountainous geography of Dacia, with its narrow gorges and dense forests, favored the guerrilla tactics employed by Decebalus. He knew the terrain like the back of his hand and used ambushes to inflict severe losses on the Romans. Even with Rome's numerical and technological superiority, the legions faced fierce resistance, and Trajan realized that victory would be long and hard-fought. One of the most significant battles of this campaign occurred at Tapi, where Trajan's forces encountered strong resistance from the Dacians. The battle was tough, and although the Romans emerged victorious, it was a costly win. Many Roman soldiers perished, and Trajan understood that underestimating the Dacians would be a fatal mistake. Instead of forcing an immediate advance, he decided to fortify his positions and prepare for a new offensive, learning from his mistakes and adapting his tactics. Decebalus's resistance during the first campaign not only frustrated Trajan's plans, but also tested the morale of the Roman troops. Decebalus used this opportunity to propose a peace agreement, promising to be a loyal vassal of Rome in exchange for Dacian autonomy. Trajan, however, knew this was merely a ploy to buy time, but accepted the temporary peace, using the period to rearm his forces and plan a definitive offensive. During this pause in hostilities, Trajan began reorganizing his forces and reinforcing the infrastructure in the areas under his control. He ordered the construction of new fortifications along the main routes and improved communication between the legions. Trajan was determined to crush Dacian resistance once and for all, and knew that, to achieve this, he needed to be prepared for a prolonged campaign. The peace was short-lived, and hostilities soon resumed, with both sides ready for a final confrontation. The Second Dacian War, the battle that changed Rome's destiny. The second campaign against Dacia, which began in AD 105, was even more decisive. Trajan had learned from past mistakes and was determined not to give Decebalus any chance to recover. He assembled an even larger army, including troops from all parts of the empire, and launched a full-scale attack. This time, the objective was clear: conquer Dacia and eliminate Decebalus once and for all. For Trajan, victory was not just a matter of prestige, but a strategic necessity for Rome's security and prosperity. The Roman offensive was relentless. Trajan ordered his legions to attack the major Dacian fortresses simultaneously, using new siege tactics and military engineering. Siege towers, battering rams, and underground mines were employed to break the Dacian defenses. The battle for Sarmizegetusa, the capital of Dacia, was particularly brutal. Trajan's troops, led by his best generals, surrounded the city, cutting off all supply routes and bombarding the defenses day and night. Decebalus, realizing that defeat was imminent, made a final desperate stand. He mobilized all remaining forces and launched suicidal attacks against the Romans. But with the siege tightening, the situation became untenable. The Roman legions finally breached the defenses and entered Sarmizegetusa, leading to a final battle within the city. Decebalus managed to escape the siege, but Trajan sent detachments to hunt him down, determined to capture or kill him. The end came when Decebalus, with no options left and surrounded by the Romans, committed suicide to avoid capture. His death marked the end of Dacian resistance and Trajan's complete victory. With Decebalus's head sent to Rome, Trajan celebrated a grand triumph, where he was hailed as the conqueror of Dacia. The campaign, which had started as a colossal challenge, ended as one of Rome's greatest victories, solidifying Trajan as one of the most successful and respected emperors of all time. The conquest of Dacia was more than just a territorial annexation. It was a demonstration of power that reverberated throughout the ancient world. Rome had proven it could defeat any enemy, no matter how difficult the terrain or fierce the resistance. Additionally, the victory over Dacia brought immense wealth to the empire, particularly in gold, which would fund future campaigns and public works in Rome. Trajan had secured his place in history, not only as a great emperor, but as the leader who brought Rome to its zenith. The fall of Decebalus, Trajan, and the decisive victory. The fall of Decebalus was not just a military event, but a symbol of Trajan's absolute triumph over one of Rome's most formidable enemies. The capture and death of the Dacian king marked the culmination of years of conflict, during which both sides had suffered heavy losses. Decebalus, who had become a legendary figure for his resistance, faced his fate with the same courage he had shown throughout his struggle against Rome. His death, however, was not just the end of a leader, but the fall of an entire kingdom. With Decebalus's death, organized Dacian resistance quickly crumbled. The remaining fortresses fell one by one, and survivors were either captured or fled to the mountains, where they were hunted by Roman legions. Trajan left no room for any form of resistance to regroup. He ensured that the pacification of the region was total and lasting, ordering the destruction of Dacian fortresses and the capture of remaining leaders. Thus, the kingdom of Dacia was fully absorbed into the Roman Empire. The victory over Decebalus was celebrated in Rome with an unprecedented triumph. Trajan entered the city in a procession that included Dacian prisoners, captured treasures, and representations of the battles. At the heart of these celebrations was the figure of the emperor, who had turned a grueling conflict into one of Rome's greatest achievements. The Senate, in recognition of his feat, awarded Trajan the title of Dacicus in honor of his victory over Dacia. However, the fall of Decebalus and the subsequent annexation of Dacia had implications beyond military glory. With Dacia now under Roman control, Trajan began implementing a process of Romanization in the region. Roman colonies were established, bringing veterans from the legions and Roman citizens to populate the new province. The Latin language, Roman laws, and imperial culture began to take root, transforming Dacia from an independent kingdom into an integral part of the vast Roman Empire. This process of integration was accompanied by a systematic exploitation of Dacia's natural resources, particularly the gold and silver mines. Trajan had captured one of Europe's richest regions, and now Rome was determined to exploit these riches to the fullest. The Roman economy, already powerful, received a significant boost with the influx of precious metals from Dacia. This not only enriched the imperial treasury, but also financed major construction projects and future military campaigns. The economic impact of the conquest: gold, resources, and prosperity. The conquest of Dacia was a turning point in the economic history of the Roman Empire. The region's gold mines were among the richest in the ancient world, and Trajan took full advantage of this resource. The exploitation of the mines was systematically organized, with Roman engineers bringing advanced mining techniques that allowed for efficient, large-scale extraction. In no time, gold from Dacia began flowing into Rome, bolstering the empire's finances and enabling Trajan to continue expanding and strengthening Rome. This influx of wealth had both immediate and long-term impacts on the Roman economy. With significantly increased gold reserves, Trajan was able to mint more coins, which facilitated trade and strengthened the Roman currency. Additionally, the increased resources allowed Trajan to fund ambitious construction projects in Rome and the provinces, including new aqueducts, roads, temples, and forums. The prosperity that followed the conquest of Dacia was among the greatest in Roman history, reflected in the expansion and splendor of the imperial capital. The conquest of Dacia also had a significant effect on Rome's internal politics. The empire's newfound wealth allowed Trajan to redistribute some of this wealth to Roman citizens and the legions, strengthening his support base. Trajan's popularity reached new heights, and he was widely revered as an emperor who brought not only military victories, but also economic prosperity. The celebrations and festivals in Rome following the victory over Dacia were the grandest ever seen, and Trajan was immortalized in monuments like the famous Trajan's Column, which detailed his conquests. But the economic impact of the conquest of Dacia extended beyond Rome's borders. Trade in the Danube region was revitalized, with new trade routes established through Dacia, connecting the empire to lands in the north and east. The new Roman colonies in Dacia became centers of commerce and culture, spreading Roman influence even further. The Romanization of Dacia also brought stability to the empire's northern frontier, reducing the need for future military campaigns in that region and allowing Trajan to focus his efforts elsewhere in the empire. In addition to mineral wealth, Dacia also provided other valuable resources for Rome. The region's forests were rich in high-quality timber, used for building ships and structures. Dacia's fertile land also became a new source of grains and other agricultural products, helping to supply the empire's cities. In short, the conquest of Dacia transformed not only the geopolitical map of Rome, but also its economy, solidifying the empire as the undisputed superpower of the ancient world. Trajan's legacy, expansion, integration, and the future of the Roman Empire. The conquest of Dacia marked the zenith of Roman territorial expansion, and Trajan's legacy extended far beyond his military victories. Trajan was not just a conqueror. He was a visionary who understood the importance of integrating and consolidating new provinces into the fabric of the Roman Empire. His approach to governance reflected a blend of military pragmatism and a long-term vision for the empire. Dacia, once an enemy kingdom, became a thriving province, deeply embedded in Roman culture. Trajan's integration policy focused on Romanizing the newly acquired lands. In Dacia, he promoted the construction of Roman cities, such as Colonia Ulpia, Triana Sarmizegetusa, which became administrative and cultural hubs. Trajan encouraged the settlement of war veterans and Roman citizens in the region, ensuring that Roman culture, language, and laws took deep root. This process not only pacified the region, but also transformed Dacia into a vital part of the empire, contributing to its long-term stability and prosperity. Trajan's legacy can also be seen in the infrastructure he left behind. Besides fortifications and roads, he built monuments that immortalized his achievements, such as Trajan's Column, which remains one of the most impressive works of art from antiquity. These monuments were not merely celebrations of his victories, but also propaganda tools that reinforced Rome's image as an invincible power and Trajan as the ideal emperor. However, Trajan's impact extended beyond the borders of Dacia. His policies of expansion and integration set a model for his successors. Although no emperor after Trajan managed to expand the empire as successfully, his example demonstrated the importance of not just conquering, but also integrating and stabilizing new territories. This approach helped to extend Rome's golden age, ensuring that Trajan's achievements contributed to the longevity of Rome. Trajan's success in Dacia and other campaigns also reinforced the idea that Rome was a civilizing force. For Trajan, expansion was not merely about territorial conquest, but about bringing Roman civilization to new peoples. This concept of a civilizing mission justified military campaigns and helped maintain public support for expansionist wars. Trajan used this ideology to shape Roman identity, seeing Rome as the center of a civilizing empire destined to govern and educate the world. Finally, Trajan's legacy should be viewed in the context of the empire's subsequent decline. Trajan expanded Rome to its maximum extent, but the vastness of the empire also brought new challenges. Administering such extensive territories required resources and organization that eventually became difficult to maintain. Despite this, Trajan's era is remembered as a time of glory and power, when Rome was at the height of its military and cultural strength. The conquest of Dacia was a central piece of this legacy, symbolizing Roman power and Trajan's ability to turn challenges into opportunities for enduring expansion and integration.